Level 1. ATF Special Agent. You're 25. Glinko, Georgia, 2004. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives has a specific mandate in a specific world: the intersection of weapons, violence, and organized crime. The ATF doesn't get the headlines the FBI gets. It doesn't get the mystique of the CIA. What it gets are the cases nobody else wants: illegal gun trafficking in cities where the murder rate is climbing, outlaw motorcycle clubs that run narcotics through weapons pipelines, straw purchases that move firearms from legal buyers to prohibited persons to crime scenes. The cases are unglamorous and consequential, and frequently require one specific thing: someone willing to go inside. Glinko. Basic agent training, 5 months. You're with a cohort of 32. The curriculum covers federal firearms law in more depth than you knew existed. The GCA, the NFA, the specific provisions that create federal jurisdiction over weapons that would otherwise be state matters. You learn the architecture of illegal weapons markets. You learn how guns move from point of manufacture to point of crime. A senior agent named Okafor teaches the undercover block. He says a TF undercover work is different from FBI undercover work in one key way. We don't just need you to buy things. We need you to become the kind of person that the worst people in America trust. That takes longer and costs more. You ask how long. He says, depends on who you're becoming. You're assigned to the Chicago Field Division. You work intelligence and surveillance for 2 years before they put you in the undercover training track. You use the 2 years to learn what the cases look like before you're inside them. Level 2. Undercover Trainee. The school. You're 27. A TF's undercover training is specific, not just role-play scenarios, identity construction. You learn to build a person, the backstory, the walk, the talk, the specific vernacular of whatever world you're going to enter. The motorcycle community has its own language. The street gun market has another. The militia world has another. You spend 8 weeks on motorcycle culture, not as academic study, as immersion. You ride. You learn the hierarchy of a club: hang around, prospect, full patch. You learn the specific significance of cuts and colors and what wearing certain patches in certain combinations means and doesn't mean. You learn what the 1% patch means and why the 1% who wear it will notice everything wrong about the person wearing it improperly. Your cover identity is being built. Ray Kowalski, from Milwaukee, does odd jobs, has a sealed juvenile record that's been constructed through a process you don't need to understand, rides a 2001 Harley Dyna that the ATF maintains for exactly this purpose. A trainer named Briggs, former Hells Angels informant, did 6 years inside before flipping, watches you in every scenario. He says almost nothing. He corrects by demonstration. He shows you how Ray stands, how Ray holds a beer, how Ray responds to a question he doesn't want to answer. After week 4, he says, "You're too clean." You say, "Too clean how?" He says, "Your hands, your nails, your skin." Ray doesn't have your hands. You spend the next 4 weeks making Ray's hands. Manual labor, outdoor work, the specific physical evidence of a life that isn't yours. By week 8, you have Ray's hands. Level 3, first undercover, gun trafficking. You're 28. Chicago, 2006. 18 months. A gun trafficking network moving stolen firearms from downstate Illinois into Chicago. The straw purchases, the kitchen table deals, the specific pipeline that puts illegal weapons into the hands of people who have federal prohibitions. You're Ray Kowalski. Ray needs a gun. Ray isn't particular about provenance. The first buy takes 6 weeks to get to. You spend 6 weeks being Ray in the bars and the neighborhoods where this network operates before anyone will sell to you. You're not approaching the sellers, and you're being present until the sellers approach you. Okafor's principle. In gun trafficking cases, the buyer comes to the seller. The seller approaches when the buyer has been visible and consistent long enough to be credible. On the 43rd day, a man approaches you in a bar. He sells you a 9mm that was stolen in a burglary 18 months prior and has been in the pipeline since. You pay $300. The gun is in an evidence bag at the Chicago field office by 11 p.m. You make 17 buys over the next 14 months. Every buy is recorded. Every buy is documented. Every buy is linked back to the source through the specific chain of custody that makes a federal case. The operation closes with 8 arrests. The network is not destroyed. Networks don't destroy, they reconstitute. But this iteration is disrupted, the pipeline is documented, and 8 people who were putting illegal weapons into a city where they were killing people are in federal custody. You write the reports, you testify, you go home. You have Ray's hands for 3 more weeks before they start to fade. Level 4. Motorcycle Club Infiltration. Year 31. Southwest 2009. The operation you've been building toward. A full-patch infiltration of an outlaw motorcycle club with documented ties to weapons trafficking, narcotics distribution, and 3 unsolved homicides. This is the category of case that ATF undercover work was designed for, and that the history of the Bureau's undercover operations, including the operations that went badly, was built around. You know the history. You've studied it specifically, the cases that worked, the cases that didn't, what the difference was. The difference consistently is time and discipline. Cases that failed rushed the infiltration or abandoned the discipline of the cover. Cases that succeeded took years and held the discipline regardless of pressure. You're starting as a hangaround at a chapter in New Mexico, not the most significant chapter, a mid-tier chapter with connections to the structure that's the actual target. You'll work your way up through the chapter toward the connections. This takes 2 years. 2 years of being Ray Kowalski every day. 2 years of club meetings and runs and the specific social world of an outlaw motorcycle club that is simultaneously a genuine community. People who care about each other, who show up when someone's in the hospital, who have traditions and rituals and loyalties, and an organized criminal enterprise. You hold both of those things simultaneously. The same institution, the same people. This is the hardest part of the case that nobody briefed you on. The targets are not abstractions. They're people you've eaten with, traveled with, helped move when someone's wife left them. The weapons trafficking is real. The violence is real. The people doing it are also real. You report everything. You maintain the discipline. You don't become Ray. You don't entirely remain yourself either. Level 5. Full patch. Deep inside. You're 33. Before we go any further, drop a comment below. What career do you want to see next? Hit like, subscribe. We post every single day. You're a full patch member. The patch is earned through the process, the hang-around period, the prospect period, the vote, the ceremony. You've done all of it as Ray. The patch is real to everyone who sees it. It opens doors that hang-arounds don't go through. The weapons operation, a pipeline moving stolen military-grade weapons, M16 components, suppressors, modified semi-automatic to full automatic, from a source that you've been working toward identifying. The source is 2 levels up from your chapter. You have documentation on your chapter's piece of the pipeline. The operation needs documentation on the source. You've been in this club for 2 years. You are trusted. Trust is the worst word in this work. An operation that requires you to be present at a transaction you haven't been present at before. A larger transaction, not a street-level buy, a bulk transfer. You're Ray, and Ray has been reliable, and Ray being present at the transfer is the next logical step in Ray's value to the chapter. You notify your handler, an agent named Reyes who has been running your case for 18 months. She says, you need authorization to be present at a transaction at this level. You say, if I'm not present, I've plateaued Ray's access. The case stops here. She says, I'll get the authorization. The authorization comes. You're present at the transfer. You record it. The transfer links the chapter to the source for the first time with direct evidentiary documentation. In the car afterward, alone, you sit for a long time before you drive to the dead drop. You've been Ray for 2 years. Ray just helped document a federal case against people Ray considers his brothers. You drive to the dead drop, level 6, Waco and the shadow of history. You're 35. Debrief/recovery 2013. The operation closes with 12 arrests. You testify. The convictions come. You sit in the courthouse during the verdicts and feel something that is not triumph and is not relief. After operations of this length, ATF protocol requires a structured debrief and psychological evaluation. You do both. The evaluator asks about compartmentalization, how you manage the 2 identities. You say you don't fully manage it. You hold them. They're both real. You have to let them both be real or the cover fails. She says, what happens when the operation ends? You say, I'm finding out. The debrief includes a session specifically on Waco, a TF's institutional history with the 1993 siege, the raid planning failures, the deaths, the congressional investigations, the reform program. Every ATF agent knows this history. Every ATF undercover agent knows it more specifically. The Waco failure was partly an intelligence failure. Agents inside Mount Carmel were recalled before they could gather information that might have changed the raid decision. The question of what good undercover work could have prevented is one the Bureau has lived with for 30 years. You studied Waco before your first operation. You think about it after your last one. The weapons that were inside Mount Carmel, illegally converted, stockpiled, are the ATF's jurisdiction. The people inside, believers, families, children, were not abstractions, they were people. Both things are true simultaneously. This is the theme of every operation you've run. Level 7. Undercover Coordinator, you're 38. You manage undercover operations now, not running them yourself, designing them, overseeing them, making the calls about authorization levels and operational direction, and the safety of the agents inside. The safety question is different from outside it. When you were inside an operation, your safety was one of the things you managed among many. From outside an operation, the safety of the agent inside is the first and last consideration. An agent 3 months into a firearms trafficking infiltration, his cover name is Danny, he's 29, has done 2 prior short-term undercovers, reports through his handler that the targets are planning to test him. Not formally, informally. They've heard something, or they suspect something, or they're just being careful in the way that careful people are careful when they've been doing illegal things for a long time. You review the operation. You look at the intelligence that might have generated the suspicion. You look at Danny's cover, how it was built, where it might be thin. You find a gap, a detail in Danny's backstory that is inconsistent with a document that exists in a database the targets theoretically have access to. You have a decision. Extend the cover by reinforcing the gap, or extract Danny. You extract Danny. The operation terminates at 3 months without the penetration you were building toward. Danny calls you from the debrief facility. He says, the case was close. You say, the case was over. Close means nothing if they're testing you. He says, how'd you know they were testing and not just being careful? You say, I didn't know for certain. I knew the gap existed and I knew the cost of being wrong about whether they'd found it. He says, the cost. You say, yes. Level 8, Special Operations Division, Senior Manager. You're 43. You're in Washington now, policy level. ATF's undercover operations are governed by guidelines. What agents can do inside a cover, what requires additional authorization, what is prohibited regardless of the investigation's significance. The guidelines exist because of the history. Waco, Ruby Ridge, the Fast and Furious operation, cases where the operational choices created catastrophic outcomes. You helped write the current revision of the guidelines. You've been in the operations long enough to know where the old guidelines were, right? And where they created rigidity that made cases harder to run safely. The revision is built on one principle. The agent is the irreplaceable asset. The case is a product of the operation. The operation can be redesigned. The agent cannot be replaced if something goes wrong. This sounds obvious. It's not always operationally obvious. Case pressure. The investigation is close. The evidence is building. The prosecution needs one more element. Creates pressure to extend operations past the point where the guidelines recommend extraction. You've felt this pressure from every direction. The guidelines create a structure for resisting the pressure. A case manager in the field pushes back on a guidance interpretation. He has an agent who is close to a significant penetration, an international arms trafficking network, the kind of case that takes years to develop. The agent has been inside for 14 months. The case manager believes extracting now, as the guidelines suggest, destroys the penetration. You read the case file. You see what he sees. You hold the guideline. He says, we're going to lose the case. You say, we're going to protect the agent. The case is secondary. He says, the weapons this network is moving. You say, I know what they're moving. The agent cannot be the cost of making this case. Write the after action. Document what we learned. Build the next approach. The case closes at 14 months without the penetration. The after action informs a new approach. The network is disrupted 2 years later through a different methodology. The agent is safe. Level 9. Deputy Director, Field Operations. You're 49. The ATF's full operational portfolio runs through your office. 38 field divisions, 2,600 special agents, the full range of the Bureau's mission, firearms, explosives, arson, tobacco diversion, the organized crime nexus that connects them all. You brief the director weekly. You brief congressional oversight when required. You sit in interagency meetings where the relationship between ATF, FBI, DEA, and DHS is negotiated in real time over jurisdiction and resource. The undercover program is one thread in a larger fabric, but it's the thread you watch most carefully because you know what it costs from inside out. A significant operation targeting an international arms broker, a network moving military weapons out of conflict zones and into criminal markets in North America. The operation has been running 2 years. 3 agencies involved. An ATF agent as the lead infiltrator. The agent has gone quiet for 11 days. Not the protocol quiet, the unscheduled quiet. You authorize a welfare check through the backup contact procedure. The agent is safe. He went quiet because a situation developed that required him to go deeper faster than the protocol anticipated, and the communication window closed. He's deep. The case is critical. The protocol says extract. You sit with it for 4 hours. You review every piece of intelligence. You talk to the case manager. You talk to the FBI liaison. You authorize 48 more hours, with a hard extraction at hour 48 regardless. At hour 36, he makes contact through the backup channel. The situation is stable. The penetration is intact. You extract him anyway. At hour 48, as authorized. The case manager says, "We had more time." You say, "We had the time we authorized, not more." He says, "The case," you say, "is intact." The agent is out. Both are true. Write it up. Level 10. Retired. You're 54. New Mexico, 2033. 27 years. The ATF doesn't do large retirement ceremonies. There was a gathering at the field office in Chicago, where you started, with the people who'd been there, the people who knew the cases. Someone made a speech about the pipeline operations. Someone made a speech about the motorcycle infiltration. Nobody made a speech about Ray Kowalski. You were glad. You live outside Albuquerque. You chose New Mexico because you spent 2 years there as Ray and understood the landscape in a way that was specifically Ray's, and you wanted to understand it as yourself. The reclamation of a geography? You consult, occasionally. Training programs. A university course on undercover methodology that you teach once a year with the specific disclaimers about what can and can't be disclosed. You think about Okafor, who said you need to become the kind of person that the worst people in America trust. You became that person. Several times. You came back from it each time. The coming back was never complete. You brought something with you from every operation, some residue of the person you'd constructed. It fades. It doesn't disappear. You think about Briggs, who fixed your hands, who showed you that the body carries the cover whether you're performing it or not. You think about what that means in reverse, Stanai. What your body carries from the covers. What doesn't come off when the operation ends. You think about the moment after the full patch transfer, sitting in the car. What you felt that wasn't triumph and wasn't relief. You've thought about it for 20 years. You've decided the feeling was grief, not for the case or the targets or anything specific, for the version of yourself that had to be suspended for 2 years to make the case possible. The version came back. Mostly is the honest word. The mountains are doing what they do in the morning. The specific New Mexico light that Ray noticed, and that you've been noticing for 27 years. It's yours now, not Ray's, not the covers. Yours, that matters.